This week was another bad week, but it could have been a really good week just by a tiny small detail. And I'm gonna go through it. This was my second trade of the week, and it's sort of everything went down from there. So these are my trades for the week. 5 losing trades. It's on the high side of the number of trades I want to take per week. I'm usually aiming for that 1 or 2 good trades. If I get a winning trade, I'll be more likely to stop trading. Yeah, 5 is on the high side and it's not my ideal scenario. That's why I have a 4 loss max per week. There was a half risk in there, so I allowed myself to take another trade. It wasn't the best trade, but let's go through it. This week was quite tricky. A lot of back and forth, a lot of whipsaw price action. It's sort of a range here on Wednesday on Bitcoin, and it lasted for 2.5 days on Ethereum here at the top. Anything that looked like the model was going to play out, then it was suddenly moving the other way around until Thursday UK when we finally had this move, and this move happened at the end of UK, which is usually not a session I trade. And I wasn't trading at that point anymore because I've hit in Asia. That's where I've hit my 4 max losses per week. It was actually 5 trades, 4.5 hour. And this is what hurted me this week as well, is that if I'm not patient and I use all my bullets from the start of the week, then I refrain myself from trading on what can potentially be good opportunities on the Thursday and Friday. And this is what happened last week as well. That's why 5 trades is a lot for me within a week. I'll try to aim for way less and be more patient. This is not what I've been this week. Haven't been patient. We'll go through that trade on Monday. But if that second trade would have played out, I would probably be stopped trading or be way more relaxed. But I got stopped out by 30 cents. And it probably sort of unraveled a little bit of sort of revenge trading and trying to get that next move to recover those losses. Over the weekend, we had clean, you see here, final damage W, a W here, both into demand on Bitcoin and Ethereum, level 1, level 2. And the way we were holding the EMAs, I was really expecting a level 3 that would probably straight away go get that liquidity that was above on Bitcoin and here on Ethereum. We did actually just missed it on Ethereum. You could see here on that first day in Asia, whipsaw price action. We were ranging the whole session, but Monday was a bank holiday, and I usually like Asia bank holiday because that's when you get big trending moves, and we just did not get that this time. There was an entry here just before the gap in the Asian gap, which was a 2-minute entry. And I've been sick this whole week, so I actually was sleeping there and I woke up just for the open. And we had this big wick here down that took everybody that was long early at that position, exactly the same on Bitcoin here, you could see. And you had this clean railroad track holding 50% of Sunday, exact same thing on Ethereum, holding the EMAs. And that's when I went long and I thought damage is done and we're going to go higher, grab this liquidity. So my target was, this was the first target, but obviously trying to go higher. This was maybe a bit greedy for a trade, but whatever move I could get out of that, if this was even the low of the week. So we're on the 2 minute now. I just want to show that trade that I said that I missed. Here you can see that beautiful, this 2 morning star pattern creates that W right into the open. You got divergence between the 2 assets, so Bitcoin actually takes this low. So here there was a good trade to take. I like this, especially because there was a public holiday in Asia and targeting that liquidity up there. And I remember I was actually seeing it when a price was here, I was at the charts. And there's something that I always say is that you might have a target for your trade. It's if the price is just below it and it's just failing to get to your target, why not close that trade there? Because it's almost there. You're taking the risk of giving all those unrealized gains back. Around this area, I was saying to myself, if I was in this trade, I would have cut this trade. So instead of getting almost 3-hour trade, you would have just got a 2-hour trade. But to start the week, it's pretty good within 10 minutes. And if you want to look on the 5 minutes of my trade, that's when I open my trade. Nice grab of all this liquidity, reclaiming, ready for a sharp move to the upside. We actually went nowhere. And I have a 2-hour mark when I usually check my trade. And when I did check, I think we were over here and we were not pushing higher. I thought about closing, but at the same time, I was still respecting my idea. So I just left it open. I went play golf and just let my trade being stopped out a little bit later. Then this was the trade of the week on Monday UK. We had a clear sharp moves down in the Asian extension, so it's usually a good trap move, especially after having that consolidation. And when this happens, everything I look for is a sweep of Asia lows over the 2 sessions, probably get a W and a reclaim, and that's a really good trade and target Asia highs. At this point in time, we had this breaker, which was quite obvious. We broke above, and my idea, I was live for this session, so you can go back and watch the live and see all my reactions to that trade. I went back and looked through it, and I can see the mistakes I made. I'm gonna run through them. So my plan was for price to break through that breaker, retest it, and this was going to be my entry. We didn't really break it with strength, and we already sort of had a small retest here on the 2 minute, and sometimes it does happen that it breaks a retest and then it keeps going. So I didn't enter this trade. I had no drawdown. It was good. The only thing I was worried about is that area here was a potential rejection zone for a move lower on the 1 hour. And the whole time that we were here, I said, I think I want to close this trade. I want to close this trade. At the time, this trade was less than a 1 hour result at that area, but I felt more confident closing it. And I said, if we do get a retest of that breaker, like I initially wanted, then I'll re-enter this trade. The thing is, I failed. I just froze. I failed to close this trade. Here you could see on Bitcoin, it was clearly rejecting the low of Sunday. And I said, if Bitcoin breaks through its breaker here, that it did retest here already, it means this setup is sort of invalidated and I might just get out break even. Everything happened so quickly. I think I tried to close and I was clicking on something else. There's a bit of a mess up going on at the time. And in the meantime, I had raised my stop loss to under that breaker. And usually if it's a good breaker, it will just get retested and keep going. So having your stop loss just below is not a big deal. And you would not believe it, but I got tapped my stop loss by 30 cents and price reversed and price went to my target. And what happened is when this happened, because Bitcoin was so below and hereafter for the next 30 minutes to 40 minutes, it was only retesting the low of Asia without breaking it. I just closed my laptop and I kept going. I was like, okay, it might just go down from here. This was a bit of a deep retrace and this one clearly broke through. But in the end, Bitcoin did this W and that breaker got ran through twice and then retested here. And that's exactly when Ethereum was consolidating before breaking higher. But I wasn't at the charts anymore. If I did exit this trade here for a small profit, then it would have been no worries for me to maybe re-enter here or here when I realized that we were actually holding this level here. But I just see my trade getting stopped out and I just gave up on the day. What's difficult here is that if that trade would have played out, I would have had a loss, and this was a 4-hour trade. I would have been 3 hour in profit, and that's a good target for me for the week. So I would have been pretty chill for the rest of the week, and I would have not been keen to risk that profit, and I probably would have just stopped for the week. Then from there, Tuesday was pretty average. No setup for me in all that formation here. Asia and UK was just straight up. It's not a trading environment that I like. Come Wednesday, I thought we had a good setup finally. It did look promising, so we had that M formation finally on both assets, actually a little bit deeper on Ethereum here, but with the break of the 50 targeting the 200 and then retesting the 50 before going lower. This was a good break here with that volume candle of the 50 EMA on Ethereum, so a retest of that EMA plus around that candle was a good target. We did take those highs with those candles. That's what made me take this short. We had this good M formation here on Bitcoin, which made me enter my trade on Ethereum when Ethereum grabbed the liquidity, and then from there we just bounced higher. So I suffered this loss on it, but at the same time what I was looking at is that breaker here got retested, and then you even have the 1 minute breaker in here with this candle that got retested here, and we reclaimed Asia lows. And I thought because this was a big retest on the 1 hour, bullish retest, that price might still go higher and try to target the higher liquidity at that level. So I did enter long on Bitcoin. I flipped from short to long. So took that second trade, didn't go anywhere, and ended up being stopped out in the extension. So really at this point, I'm just accumulating losses in that choppy environment, and I'm just getting my ass kicked. Then my last trade of the week was pretty much a 1 hour setup. We were holding Monday's highs here and the high of previous week. Had a bit of this round bottom here on Bitcoin. And this first retest with that candle was good, and then that second one on the other side, I saw this as a trap, and on the 5 and 15 minute it looked bullish, so I entered this trade to finally target that higher liquidity, which we didn't go to, and I get stopped out on this one as well. This is another trade which on the 5 minute I could have flipped bearish. It was a really good entry, and I could have gone break even as well. One thing that I failed to see is that I really wanted Ethereum to retest that supply, and we just tapped it here. And on the second tap, we did go into it and we rejected the high of previous week again. So this should have been a sign that we were actually going to reverse from that point. I didn't see it that way. All this choppy price action just made it difficult to understand, and I should have stepped away instead of staying in that trade. And then there was potentially a good entry here for that short, but this is hindsight. So on that 1 hour Bitcoin long, this was a breaker. We had a pretty sharp retest here. I managed to get my entry right on point. We get a big reaction, this white candle. And from there, honestly, I could have gone break even because price had no business going back to my entry. What I failed to see was that bearish engulfing, and here that little inverted hammer that actually retested my zone on this side. I could have exit that trade from here, realizing this is not what we're doing. I can exit now, break even, small loss of fees, and reassess later if it's still worth being in that trade. So this was my week. I can whinge as much as I want about everything that happened. It's part of trading. There's many times where this is going to happen to you, being stopped out by 30 cents and then sort of ruining your whole week. It is what it is. You can only move on and focus on to the next week and try to not repeat the same mistakes. I'll be more patient and try to do better overall. All right, see you guys.